Good morning, and thank you for enjoying it with a six-pack, the Scotty Six-Pack, your one-stop shop for all things Wisconsin sports. I am your host, Kedrick Stumberis. You can find me on the website formerly known as Twitter at Kedrick Stumberis, and follow the podcast at Scotty Six-Pack to get the latest updates, takes, thoughts, musings as it comes to all of your favorite Wisconsin sports teams. We are welcoming back in this episode a very special guest who we had at the very beginning of the NFL season. It is one Sam Gemini of the Puckworms and Snap the Pigskin podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, which I hope you are, hit the subscribe button. You can see Sam's face on it. It's one of the best benefits. Sam, thank you for coming back. Good to talk to you again after I was on your show last time.
Yeah, appreciate it. Always fun to chat about the NFL. Thanks for asking me back. Wasn't sure if I was going to be asked back after how I really did a number on you when you weren't there to defend yourself after the week after you came on our show. So appreciate you having me on for sure, and looking forward to talking about this game. I wish the Bears were involved in the playoff picture, but even without that, this is still a very interesting game that it is going to get the number one CBS crew on Sunday afternoon. So should be exciting.
Yeah, the rare CBS NFC game, and interesting. Oh no, this was a Fox game in week 1.
Yeah,
but the Packers got CBS treatment.
I remember because Greg Olsen was like freaking out about how Jordan Love is the greatest quarterback of all time during that game.
Yeah. Well, this is a good segue into how you opened our conversation in week 1 about the week 1 game between the Bears and Packers, which was, you said, this is the first Packers-Bears game in my lifetime which will not feature a Hall of Fame quarterback. To which Tim Robinson would like to ask you, you sure about that? The bar for getting Hall of Fame quarterbacks is pretty low. Drew Brees is going to make, not that any of these guys are bad, but like some of them have one Super Bowl ring and no MVPs. Drew Brees is going to make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but I mean, wait.
Drew Brees make the Hall of Fame.
Doesn't Drew Brees have like the touchdown passing record or something? Or no, Brady probably broke that eventually, but like.
Sure, but he was never the best quarterback when he was playing. Matthew Stafford's going to make the Hall of Fame, but.
Oh, I don't like that. Is he? Yeah.
He's going to get votes. I was listening to another show the other day too, and they're like, Russell Wilson's going to get Hall of Fame votes. He might make the Hall of Fame, to which I think that's absurd because he wasn't even leading the best unit when he won a Super Bowl. But
we won't go off on a tangent about Eli Manning and how he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. We can save that for another time.
But I think it's an interesting throwaway comment that you gave in week 1, where I think we're all just assuming the Packers can't do it 3 times in a row. Now it looks like Green Bay has at least a real franchise quarterback. Jordan Love is far from proving himself as a Hall of Famer, but I think it's safe to say he's going to get a contract extension in Green Bay. I assume that's going to happen this offseason. I wouldn't be surprised. They got a guy, and now that guy has brought the Packers to the same position that they were in last year with the last guy, where it is win and in. And for those keeping track at home, the Packers have defeated the Bears in 9 straight meetings. The last time the Bears beat the Packers, the Bears eliminated Green Bay from playoff contention. So we have come full circle around in like a number of interesting ways.
I'm pretty sure the last time before that was at Lambeau Field on Brett Favre night on Thanksgiving.
I think that's right too.
I think it's literally been like the only I think 2018 was the only time in like the last decade that the Bears have beaten the Packers. Unless there was like maybe there was a time when Aaron Rodgers was injured that I forgot about that the Bears won.
I feel like there has to be another win in there because Brett Favre jersey retirement was fall of 2015. I think there has to be something between 15 and 18, but Fun
There
fact,
does
I was
not
at
have
that
to.
game.
I wouldn't say that there has to be. As somebody
Oh,
who's been on
okay.
the
No,
losing
that's
end
true.
of all
That's
of
true.
those, they lose pretty much every time.
Uh,
I'm not. If maybe Aaron Rodgers was injured or something, I don't know. One of those types of games where it was like, where some clown trots out there as the Packers backup quarterback, and the Bears win that game. But
um,
yeah, it's not been fun in
yeah,
Chicago.
it depends. But so now we're here, and the beginning of this conversation in week one was, I mean, largely focused on the quarterbacks. And we have a lot of data points about the quarterbacks now coming into the end of this season. And in week one, you had said that fans have a lot of hope about Justin Fields, hoping that he looks a lot better. The narrative all offseason was that Justin Fields is going to take a big step. He's been better, but how are you assessing Justin Fields after this season, or at least through the first 17 weeks of this season?
Well, this is all very confusing and murky in Chicago right now because of well, I guess all right. Just to answer your question, I think good, mostly good or better at least. Maybe not fully good, but definitely better, especially lately. The last 6 weeks or so, I feel like Fields has gradually been getting better. Pocket presence has been better this year. He has made some really impressive throws at numerous different points, and I thought his last game that he just played, where they blew out Atlanta at Soldier Field, I think that was his best game as a pro. And especially, I mean, passing wise, it was undoubtedly his best game as a pro. He was on time. He threw some unbelievable balls in that game. And he made a couple of very nice runs as well. Overall, I'm encouraged by the trajectory that Fields is on. I just like I have no. It is so difficult. This decision this offseason is going to be so difficult because of the fact that the Bears have the number one overall pick again. I would if the Bears didn't have a number one or number two type of pick, I would feel a lot more excited about the prospect of Justin Fields, just because, like, if the Bears were picking number 7 or something, they would be sticking with Fields, no question. They would try to draft another weapon of some sort. They would roll into next year with a really good defense and hope that they can continue to help Fields go on this upward trajectory. But with the situation in the Bears having the Carolina Panthers pick, like right now, I just don't know if what we've seen from Fields is good enough to allow or to make Ryan Poles choose to pass up on Caleb Williams or Drake May and trade the number one pick for the second year in a row. And it's dampening excitement that I have for Fields, because I'm afraid that if they keep Fields, then we're going to watch Caleb Williams become a legend somewhere else. And I'm afraid that if they trade Fields, we're going to watch Fields become a legend somewhere else. So yeah, it's a tough, it's actually a good problem to have for the Bears. But it's also extremely stressful right now. And it's very confusing. I really don't know what to think about the whole situation, to be honest.
So I mean, I don't think it's a good problem for Chicago to have. I think if, like, you want this to be an easy decision one way or the other. This is the worst case scenario. Like, for Packers fans coming into this year was, okay, worst case scenario isn't Jordan Love sucks. Worst case scenario is we still don't know what Jordan Love is. Maybe because he breaks his leg in week 2, or he just has a really up and down season. Like, worst case scenario is not knowing what to do. And I think the way you kind of summed it up, of being terrified of, no matter what happens, the organization's going to make the wrong decision. Because, I mean, what in the history of the Chicago Bears tells us that they're going to make the right decision?
Exactly.
Exactly. To me,
Everything
my gut
in the
says,
Bears
I don't know what
history
the right decision is,
gonna
but
be
I know
sitting here.
Chicago's going to make the wrong one.
I just know, like, it's the history is we end up watching a guy that we had or could have had become elite somewhere else. It's a Patrick Mahomes all over again, or something like
Yes.
that. Like that is the nightmare scenario. The only thing I will say is that's Bears history. That's not Ryan Poles history. And I've actually been really happy with what Ryan Poles has done, save for the Chase Claypool fiasco, as I think I termed it on Snap the Pigskin.
Yes.
That was a fiasco. That was a bad trade that ended up like not only did it not help them, it actually hurt the Bears. It created all sorts of drama and distractions. And I actually think the Bears were worse with Chase Claypool on the team. And they forfeited the 32nd pick with that trade. So that was a really bad move by Ryan Poles. But pretty much most other things that he's done, his defensive drafts have hit. Jaquan Brisker has been outstanding. Montez Sweat trade was awesome. The defense has been one of the best units in the league for the last few weeks since they got Montez Sweat. And this trade, the number 1 overall pick, the trade that got DJ Moore and Carolina's pick for this year, is I don't even think it's particularly close. It's got to be the best trade in the history of the Bears franchise, with how this is now played out, with Bryce Young being terrible, the Bears having the number 1 pick again, and DJ Moore now has 1,300 yards this season. And the Bears are going to get a 2nd round pick in 2025. Like, this was an absurd fleecing of the Carolina Panthers. So that's the only, that's what does give me a little bit of hope, is I think Ryan Poles seems to be pretty smart so far. And maybe Bears, the Bears virus will infect him at some point between now and April. But that's the one thing that kind of makes me feel optimistic about whatever decision ends up being made. And I still don't know what that decision is going to be. I'll be honest. I have no idea.
I think Ryan Poles and those transactions are a good place to jump off to another conversation we had right before week 1, which was that we discussed who the most important newcomer on the Bears roster was going to be. And you had said, and I had agreed, that was DJ Moore. And I think on the offensive side of the ball, that's a no-brainer. Like, as not, in my opinion, not very good that Justin Fields has been this year, man can throw the ball to DJ Moore, and DJ Moore can make some plays.
Yeah.
That is, look, I don't think Justin Fields is great at spreading the ball around all the time, but like, he can get the ball into DJ Moore's hands and they can do special things. I don't know, is that a Justin Fields problem, or is that the other receivers on the team problem? I'm not sure. But if it's not DJ Moore, who's the most important addition, there's a guy there that I think is actually the most important addition to this Bears roster that we just didn't know at the time, which is Montez Sweat.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bears have been, I think this game is really interesting in week 18, because since week 11, the Packers have the 2nd best offense in the league by EPA per play. The Bears, since week 11, have the number 1 defense in the league by EPA per play. Like, Montez Sweat has been a revelation. He has 6 sacks in Chicago alone, plus another 6 sacks before he got to Chicago this season. I mean, what a revelation he's been. I don't even know how to ask a question.
Oh yeah. It's been great. It's been really, and I mean, it's actually a pretty, when you step back and think about it, and I almost kind of feel like this isn't getting played up enough, at least in Chicago. Maybe it is nationally, but like just around the media, like, this is one of the most shocking turnarounds of a defense that I've ever seen. Like this defense was pathetic, and that's one of the night and day difference between the week 1 Bears Packers game and this week's game. The defense in week 1 was a complete disaster. I mean, they couldn't get off the field on 3rd down. They were, and that's, Greg Olsen was freaking out about how Jordan Love's play, because the Bears were leaving everybody wide open and they weren't getting any I don't even know if the Bears had a sack in that game. And it wasn't just against the Packers. It was, I mean, they were one of the worst units. They got embarrassed by the Chiefs. It looked like such a disaster. And everybody was calling for Matt Eberflus to be fired after like week 4. And now what you just said, it's the number 1 defense by some metrics in the league since week 11. Like, that is an absolutely remarkable turnaround, largely due to, as you mentioned, that massive acquisition of Montez Sweat really, really beefed up. I think obviously beefed up the pass rush. And I think that really allowed the other strengths of the defense to show themselves. I think since then the linebackers have been better and really just everybody's Jalen Johnson now. Jalen Johnson, I think, according to PFF, is like the number one cornerback in all of football, or at least he was a couple of weeks ago. So that to me, that's really fascinating about this game. Seeing Jordan Love, we saw Jordan Love against the disaster of a Bears defense in week 1, and now we get to see him play in his first win or go home game against a really good defense against that very same Bears team here in week 18. I think that's going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah, I think so too. And for as good as Jordan Love has been, for as good as the Packers offense has been, they're facing mediocre-ish defenses in this last stretch of 5 weeks. The Packers haven't played a top half pass defense by EPA per play since they played against Danny DeVito and the New York Giants. And Chicago is a different menace. Like it is going to be fascinating seeing how those two units line up with one another. I mean, especially because the Packers have what has impressed me the most about, and what has been, I think, one of the things that has made me believe in Jordan Love more this season than it has made me believe in Justin Fields is going into week 1. We talked about the injury status of guys like Christian Watson, guys like Romeo Doubs, who ended up playing that game. Romeo Doubs looked great in that game. But one of the things that I said was, if they can't go, I don't know who the pass catchers are on this Packers offense that are going to do things. Well, Justin Fields can get out there and get the ball to DJ Moore. Jordan Love is getting the ball out there and making 100-yard wide receivers out of guys named Bo Melton from Rutgers, which, like, practice squad call up, it's 100 yards.
I love how you threw the from Rutgers in there. Bo Melton from Rutgers, of all places.
Like, it's not that is a school that produces a ton of high-end, like, skill position talent, like, in particular. So you're going to take all that and then try to replicate that against what has been the best defense overall, the best passing defense in the league. I think makes this a really, really, I mean, it's a tough game for anybody to try to do. Let's get into a little bit more about the game itself while we're on that note. Bears defense is great. Packers offense has been high flying lately. The Bears win this game if what happens, Sam?
I think the Bears win this game if they get pressure on Jordan Love and the defense lives up to what it's been, kind of to how it's looked. And you mentioned that the Packers offense has gone against kind of mediocre opponents. The Bears defense really hasn't played that many elite teams either. I guess the best one would probably be Cleveland, and they looked really good in the game against Joe Flacco. And that was sort of before we found out that Joe Flacco was going to suddenly be like a spy, awesome. So that was a really good one. But other than that, the opponents haven't been that great either. But I think if, the Packers have a fairly strong offensive line, I think if the Bears can get pressure on Jordan Love and speed him up a little bit, I think that would go an extremely long way. And then, I think not to just always make it all about the quarterbacks, but I think if Justin Fields plays like he did last week, I think the Bears absolutely win the game. I don't know what version of Fields we're going to see. I don't know what version of Luke Getsy and his offense we're going to see. That is, to me, the struggles that the Bears have had. The Bears offensive coordinator for decades has been the most hated person in the city of Chicago. So it's hard to look good as an offensive coordinator when your players and your quarterback sucks. But I don't know. If Luke Getsy gets all in his stupid again, it's going to be a tough day for the Bears. But I think the two to answer your original question, the two keys for me, if the Bears can get pressure on Jordan Love, and speed him up and allow the secondary to do what they can do for the Bears, and then If Justin Fields plays like he did last week, I think if those two things happen, I think the Bears win. And honestly, if Justin Fields plays like he did last week, I don't even think the Bears defense needs to be that good. But Fields has been inconsistent, so I don't really know what we're going to get from him in this game.
So I think it makes sense to, try to get a lot of pressure on Jordan Love, but also Jordan Love has really done well under pressure. Like on Sunday night, we saw the most blitz heavy defense in the NFL, the Minnesota Vikings, just get shredded by Jordan Love. He has stood up to pressure in the last, handful of weeks playing these defenses like Tampa Bay and Minnesota that are going to bring pressure. I understand that the Bears are kind of a different monster in a certain sense, just by like their sheer numbers, but I am not particularly worried about him standing up to pressure. And I also think that if we look back at the beginning of the season, I think it's interesting that we're saying you bring up Packers offensive line is still good. We talked going into that game, into week one, about David Bakhtiari, starting left tackle for the Packers, might not play, but if he doesn't, well, I'm sure they'll figure it out. David Bakhtiari played in that game and has not played again this season, which I just found a little serendipitous. Okay, your Luke Getsy point. I want to rant about this a little bit.
Real quick before we move on from that, I think your point about the blitzing and Jordan Love, kind of carving up the Vikings, I think that's a valid point. I don't necessarily think that the Bears blitz. I don't think a blitz heavy game plan is necessarily what will win the Bears the game. I think the Bears are at the point where they can get pressure without blitzing. And that's that.
I think that's a different story.
If they can bring four and still get pressure, that's basically, we've almost never seen a quarterback be able to beat that type of thing. Right. So that is my hope, that they can generate enough of a disruption without actually having to bring a lot of players on the pass rush.
I think that makes
if you want to rail on Luke Getsy now, I'm very much down for that conversation.
All right. So we have had a conversation on Snap, or either on or during, before, after. I know you have with Noah on Snap the Pigskin, about the most hated person in Wisconsin is always the defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers. This is just you with Luke Getsy, and maybe offensive coordinators in general. And I also think the Luke Getsy thing is like just this weird way of excuse making for Justin Fields that I don't understand from Bears fans. My thing about the whole Justin Fields thing is I think I'm right about Justin Fields. I don't think that he's gonna win anybody a Super Bowl. I think Bears fans just need to move on. I'm trying to help you, Bears fans. But because the excuse in year one for Fields was, his coach is bad, Matt Nagy is bad. The excuse in year two was, he doesn't have any weapons. The excuse in year three is, his offensive coordinator is bad. When do we get to the point where it's just Justin Fields isn't as good as all Bears fans desperately want him to be? I don't get that.
That's completely, and like part of being a quarterback too, is like the really great quarterbacks, the great quarterbacks always make their offensive coordinators look good because that's kind of what being a great quarterback is. Like the quarterback is the most important player in the game. An offensive coordinator with a bad quarterback is going to look bad, and an offensive coordinator with a good quarterback is going to look good. And so, I'm not absolving Justin Fields of blame. He's had plenty of issues. He still has plenty of issues, even in some of his better games. He still holds the ball a little bit too long, and his decision making is not always, very good. There have been, as somebody who's watched every snap of the Bears this year, there have been some absolutely unconscionable play calls and game plans from Luke Getsy, especially some short yardage stuff that just doesn't make any sense, like weird toss plays on short yardage. There have been days where DJ Moore like just wasn't even involved for like an entire half. Like, I don't know how that happens. It's just, and then, his explanations of what went wrong are always like, the play was right, The players just didn't do it right. And it's like, I mean, your job as a coach is to teach the players how to do the stuff right. And if they can't do it, obviously that's on the player, but you should stop calling it if they can't do it. And it's just like we've seen so much. Like the game plan against the Packers in Week 1 was such an awful game plan. Like you had a guy that was going to last year. He was on pace to if he I don't think he played in Week 17. He was on pace to break the all-time rushing record for quarterbacks last season. And it's decided like they called one design run. That was a big talking point all week. Danny Parkins, who I referenced the last time I was on your show, he said that like 50,000 times after that game. One design run. Like that was just what was so strange is like they didn't try to take the running and add the passing. Like they just got rid of the running and tried to force Justin Fields to stand in the pocket and do a bunch of stuff that he has not really traditionally been as good at. It's just there have been some game plans that have been really weird from Luke Getsy, and I'm starting to I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit better lately. I think his opening drives are really really good, but I just don't like him. I don't know. Maybe maybe I'll never like a Bears offensive coordinator until they get the quarterback right. But like I just don't understand some of the games where they never had, it was just nothing but screen plays over and over and over, screen, like sideways passing for the entire game. There was that Vikings game where they threw like 5 yards within the line of scrimmage, like 25 times or something. Like every play was a screen. And like, it just, I don't know. Stuff like that just really aggravates me. And, we didn't see that last week, which I think was helpful in Justin Fields having the great game that he had last week. Did you watch that Vikings game, that Monday night game? That's no judgment if you didn't. Like I would fully like that was such a bad game. I think I said, what did I say after that? I think I said on Snap the Pigskin that was possibly the worst game that I've ever watched. Like I thought about it like long and hard. Like I was like, I'm not gonna just. Can I think of a game? Like I think that was the worst game I've seen in my entire life. So I don't blame you if you didn't watch it. But the passing chart for Justin Fields, it was like every pass was at the line of scrimmage. It's like, what are we doing? Like his whole strength is that he's got an arm. Like that's why they drafted him. That's what he did in college. Why are we throwing it sideways, Luke Getsy? Why? Sorry, it just gets me going sometimes. So that's my thing on Luke Getsy. That's my problem.
I don't know how long that was. That may have been the full 5-minute Sam Gemini Luke Getsy therapy rant session. If anybody went listen through it without skipping, I commend you. Do you feel a little bit better?
Well, I mean a little bit, but kind of angry too.
So I think my thing, it like, yes, that in Week 1, trying to pick out the bits of the rant which were substantive for the show. In Week 1, I don't think the game plan for Fields was good. He had 20 yards rushing, and every other game he's played against the Packers, he had a minimum of 43. The first 2 times Justin Fields played the Packers, he had at least 70 yards rushing. They can do a little bit. However, I think the flip side of this is that I think there is, for my side of the coordinator hatred, Joe Barry, for as awful as I think he is, there might be something there that Green Bay has just like figured out about Justin Fields, because he doesn't have a positive touchdown ratio against the Packers yet. And they've played several times already. They played 5 games against Justin Fields now.
Yeah.
However, that might just be, there aren't many games that Justin Fields has a positive touchdown to interception ratio for his career. So maybe cherry picking that's not fair, but I don't know. I think there's room for Fields to do a lot of damage against this Packers defense that has absolutely been questionable at times. I know we talked in Week 1 about how the safeties aren't that great on this Packers team. They got a lot of questions at linebacker. I think the Packers D line is good, but for a year in which Justin Fields has at least improved at showing that he can throw the ball down the field a little bit, if Luke Getsy lets him do it, I think there's room there for Justin Fields to have his best performance against the Packers yet, which would certainly go a long way in doing a little bit of something for the Bears in Week 18. Yeah. So the Packers win this game if in Week 1, your answer to this was that the Packers could run all over the Bears, which Aaron Jones kind of did in Week 1. But since then, Aaron Jones has been banged up, missed a lot of time. AJ Dillon doesn't look like he can rip off a big run. He can barely pile through guys at times. I mean, this game is going to be won on the back of Jordan Love if the Packers are going to do it. That's how the Packers have been winning games, is on the back of a quarterback who has more touchdown passes in a season than any quarterback in the history of the 103-year-old franchise in Chicago.
Yeah, that is true.
Fun.
It's true.
It is true.
30 is the threshold to eclipse. And yep.
How does that make you feel, by the way? Just curious.
I mean, it's terrible, but it's also kind of funny. Like it's kind of, it's just once they do get a guy, it's just going to make it that much sweeter. Maybe I'll be really old, but I gotta hope that at some point in my life it's going to happen.
Yeah. So I think winning this game comes from Jordan Love, throwing. He's got to throw the ball well. The offensive line has to hold up. I'm not particularly concerned about how they're going to do that. I like we kind of talked about. I'm not worried about a blitz heavy package. If Montez Sweat can create pressure on his own, this could look like a Khalil Mack game for Chicago and Green Bay, which is kind of like the blaring red light sirens that I'm worried about. Is Khalil Mack just kind of runs roughshod on that offensive line, but this time he has a jersey that says Sweat on the back of it.
Yeah.
I think that's where my worry comes from. But otherwise, if the Packers offensive line holds up, you get enough from the defense, which I'm not particularly worried about them getting. It's just weird. This Packers season has been so weird. This wasn't a season that was supposed to be a roster that was supposed to be built on relying on Jordan Love to win. And the way this roster is constructed right now, it just is. And I hate to, simplify it down like that, but if they get great performance from, guys like Bo Melton again, Christian Watson, if he plays, Romeo Doubs, I think this is a team that can be, just through the way they can air the ball out, could be scary if they in a wild card round against certain teams. But I think if Aaron Jones rushes for 100 yards, for example, in this game, I think the Bears are cooked.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The defense is not the thing that concerns me in this game, though. Like I'm more concerned. I'm concerned with what happened. To me, the big wild card is what happens when the offense is on the field. That is what I'm pretty confident that the defense is going to be good. I don't know if I can't predict whether the Bears offense is gonna look good or competent or bad. I just don't know how to predict that. And this kind of is an obvious one, but turnovers. Justin Fields needs to protect the ball in this game. If whoever, that's I think even more in this game because the Bears defense has been getting a lot of takeaways recently. I think whoever protects the ball better is very likely to win the game because if the Bears defense starts to dominate, I would be, if I was a Packers fan, I'd be very concerned about interceptions and strip sacks. And on the flip side, if Fields has, kind of reverts and regresses to have another bad game, like he starts giving the ball away, that's going to make things a lot tougher on the Bears defense. So I think, ball security is going to be big in this game. As it is in every game, but I think that's just a particularly highlighted in this one.
Yeah, and I would not be surprised to see the Packers try to kind of like you said, speed up the clock for Jordan Love. I would not be surprised to see the Packers do that against Justin Fields and try to get him to cough it up early. Because at least in my experience watching the Bears, when Justin Fields coughs the ball up early, it kind of shakes him for the rest of the game a little bit. At least just because the Bears aren't as good trying to play catch up, at least this version of the Bears are not. So, Packers, if they can send Preston Smith, who's playing phenomenal football right now, had a sack Sunday night against the Vikings. He's playing phenomenal. Get Lucas Van Ness, Carl Brooks involved, two great rookie D linemen. I mean, Kenny Clark is a menace unto himself. I think that's going to go a long way in determining this game. Well, I think we are near the end of productive conversation about this game. I think this will be fun. Although Chicago is not in the playoff picture for this, how seriously how serious are the vibes going into this game?
Very serious
for the Bears.
Very serious.
And that's the thing is there hadn't been like a conversation about like, oh, well, the Bears are like checked out, where you a lot of times have this conversation about week 18 teams
not
in the picture, but that has not come up as part of the discussion all week.
Not in a Packers game. Definitely not in a Packers game. And especially with the fact that they have a chance to eliminate the Packers from the playoffs at Lambeau Field. They are not, it's 100%. I'm not going to say locked in and make it seem like they're mounting some sort of like rally here, but like this has been 100% full engagement from the media and from everything we've heard from what's going on with the team. It's definitely a big emphasis being placed on this game. And there's been a lot of talk about how much this game will impact the decision-making of the Bears as well. The McCaskies, we know historically that they feel very, very strongly about these Packers games. And, if the Bears get a really good outcome in this game, who knows whether, how much that sways the front office in what they decide to do going forward in this offseason. I kind of hope Ryan Poles isn't swayed by that stuff. I think he's smarter than that, but the Bears historically, this is a very, very important game for the organization and the city. So it's definitely nobody kind of, making their golf plans early so far this week.
Yeah.
Obviously the golf would be down south because it's not in Chicago.
Well, like we said in week one, the vibes going into week one and having to just whichever team came out with a win, whichever team came out with a loss, having to hold that L for 17 weeks is not going to feel good. I think the Bears have done a good job of rebounding enough over the back half of this season where
once they bottomed out,
right? Since then, though, since they bottomed out, they've rebounded quite quickly. I don't think that L feels that bad. However, I think now the risk is the Bears lose this game in week 18. Vibes are bad just because it's such a hard decision about what you do next. I think for Green Bay, the vibes are we did just as well as we did last year with a first-year starter instead of a two-time back-to-back MVP. I think we're going to be all right. So I don't know. This is a weird game that I think, again, much like week one, it means a lot, but also means nothing for the long-term trajectory.
Or does it mean a lot for the long? Like that's what I mean. Like I don't know how much for the Bears
fall into like horrible recency bias. Sure,
exactly. Yeah. Like if they get blown out in this game, like that might change. Because right now there's discussions about Matt Eberflus. Like it could be expected to come back and like maybe they trade the number 1 pick, they get Marvin Harrison Jr. or something. Like people are talking if they come out and just lay an egg in this game. Like that could change everything for better or for worse for the Bears. I'm just saying I would not be surprised if that's how they end up operating. And honestly, if Eberflus, if they get destroyed again in this game, like I'm not really interested in Eberflus coming back. Like, what does he do that's really that impressive? Like, we can find another coach that can
He
get
took
blown out by
over the defense, started calling plays, and then all of a sudden it became the best defense in the league.
Yeah, he also lost 3 games that are basically impossible to lose with fourth quarter leads, and had to fire 2 of his coordinators that he hired for, like, basically reasons that we still don't know. I just feel like there are a lot of coaches out there that can have a good defense when you have good defensive personnel, and can get blown out by the Packers twice a year. Like, we've experienced the coach that gets blown out by the Packers twice a year. Not really that interested in Eberflus coming back if the Bears are terrible in this game, to be honest. But we'll see. Maybe that's just the meatball side of me hijacking the logic side. But it should be fun. I feel a lot different. I'm a lot less nervous. Week 1, I was like freaking out. Knowing that this game, the Bears aren't going to make the playoffs, this feels like a lot more of a fun situation, at least for me. I'm not really like as worried about, what else is going to happen and the whole scope of the season. So
No, I think I agree. When we talked about this in week 1, I mean, both of us vibes were incredibly shaky.
yeah,
Now I think no matter what, it's like, this is a fun game. Let's see what's gonna happen. I don't
yeah.
know. No, vibes very different here. I'm excited to watch this one. I think should be very entertaining. Uh, Sam, what's gonna happen? Who's gonna win?
All right. Well, I'm not going to pick the Packers. I picked the Packers in week 1, but as you just said, vibes are very different this week. I think the Bears are a different team than they were. So I'm going to pick the Bears. I think the Bears defense is going to be the biggest problem or the biggest factor in this game. I think I think Jordan Love, he's far surpassed my expectations this season. And I do think it's likely that he's a franchise quarterback, but everybody's been struggling against this Bears defense. I think that it's going to be tough for the Packers to just get enough points on the board. So I'm going to take the Bears by 4 in this game. If you want an actual score prediction, I think I'll say like 20-16 or something like that. Fields is the wild card for me, but if Fields, manages the game well and doesn't make too many big mistakes, I think the Bears come out with a win. I honestly think the Bears are better than the Packers. I know I'm taking some risks by saying that on your show, but right now I think the Bears are better than the Packers. I'm fully ready to completely eat it next week if it doesn't go well. But from what I've seen the last 6, 7, 8 weeks, I like the Bears in this game.
All right. I like it. Bold take. Sam, do you have anything to plug before we say goodbye?
Sure, and I also want to hear your prediction. I still haven't heard what you predict in this game.
I was trying to get away with it. I don't know. My gut says I really want to take the Packers here just because the vibes would be immaculate.
Yeah.
So I'll say the Packers get it by a touchdown. I think
right.
we're gonna see for some reason my gut tells me this is gonna be high scoring, if only because I've seen Jordan Love just be a Brett Favre-esque gunslinger for the last however many number of weeks, and Joe Barry's defense looked like Swiss cheese. So I think we get a 34-27 Packers victory.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be weird. Just going off vibes. Really have no idea.
That's fair.
Plug away, Sam.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for having me on as always. As I mentioned, the last time I came on, I co-host 2 podcasts. One of them is hockey focused. That's Puckworms, and the other one is about the NFL. And that's Snap the Pigskin with good old Noah Clark, who is also a Packers fan. So Noah and I get to kind of go back and forth about the Bears and Packers regularly on that show. And Kedrick, you just recently, I think it was a couple weeks ago, you came on with us, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah, that was a lot of fun as well. So appreciate. Thanks for giving me a chance to mention that stuff. And it was a good time again coming on this show. Appreciate the time here today.
Yes, thank you. And I know that Snap the Pigskin's great, and I know that we don't talk a lot of NHL on here, but like, y'all do the Puckworms podcast is great. Y'all really, really, really do a great job over there because it is hard to cover a national league once a week show and try to give everything that's happened its due. And I think y'all do a really, really good job over
Thank
there
you.
of doing that. So if
Yeah,
any hockey fans want a podcast to listen to, I highly recommend Puckworms over there. They do a really good job.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for the kind words. It's a lot of fun. We try to balance like being smart with, also having fun. Like we don't have the goal for us, I think, is to not be like a national talking head, like hot take hot take hour. It's like
No,
it's
y'all know
more
Puck. Y'all know
try to
Puck.
be
You talk.
more
You talk the sport.
analytical about stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, appreciate those kind words. And yeah, you can come on Puckworms if you want to talk some hockey. If you want to talk about the Blackhawks. I don't know if you saw the Connor Bedard Michigan goal against St. Louis. That was pretty wild.
Who hasn't at this
Yeah,
point?
that was pretty crazy.
Between him and Trevor Zegras, I mean, like,
Yeah.
everyone's doing it. All right. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of the Scotty Six Pack Podcast. That is Sam Gemini, once again, of the Snap the Pigskin and Puckworms podcasts. Listen to them and this podcast wherever you like to have your ears tickled. You can also catch this show on YouTube at Scotty Six Pack. While you're around listening, leave us a nice review, subscribe, follow. Really helps us enjoy the show. I've been your host, Kedrick Stumbris. Thank you. Have a great day.